Thank you, Shoshana. Anyone else wants to say a few spontaneous words? You like?
I just wanted to say one very short story that I heard from Shalom, as Donnie, others have said, that Shalom didn't have any enemies, and the question is, how did he do it? So one story that Shalom told me was that while he was rector, he would get a number of requests from famous politicians, other people, what can he do to get their children or whether into the university? So now he was sort of in a bind. On one hand, he doesn't want to agree to bring people in by protexia. On the other hand, if he says no, these people can give a lot of trouble to the university. So he came up with the idea. He said, no problem, I will take your child in right away. You write me a formal letter requesting what you want. He said he never heard from them again, and that was the end of the story.
Anyone wants to put a formal request to speak? Anyone else? Alina.
Thank you, Gary. My name is Alina Chertok, and I was honored and privileged to be one of the students of Shalom, and I have a lot of stories to tell too. And I know a lot of story about Shalom children, even though I've never met you before. But here today, I'm not to talk about my stories, but I had a request from Alexander Chorin, who really wanted to be here, but couldn't make it. And he wrote a couple of words here and asked me to read it for everybody. I met Shalom in 1961, nearly 60 years ago, a lifetime ago. At the time, he was a postdoc at the Weizmann Institute, and I was a programmer. We struck a friendship that lasted across all these years, as well as across long distances. I'm very sorry not to be with you today to remember and praise him. Shalom was an extraordinary person in many ways. He was an outstanding mathematician whose work in computational fluid mechanics and computational physics is widely known and used. He was an outstanding academic administrator, as his service to Tel Aviv University testifies. He was an outstanding scientific leader, as shown by the record of excellence of the Department of Applied Mathematics in Tel Aviv under his guidance. He was an outstanding teacher, as demonstrated by his successful students. He was an Israeli patriot, always ready to pitch in when needed. And he was a truly fine person, always trying to be fair and always interested in the world around him. I used to see him whenever I came to Israel and sometimes met him in the US as well. He and Joanne spent a sabbatical at Berkeley, and we kept some contacts through his former students in the US, in particular David, Eitan, and Alina, and in recent years through his kindness to my son, Isan. There was some stretches in which I saw him little, but I never doubted his friendship, goodwill, and good intentions. Like many at this meeting, I will miss him greatly. Alexander, thank you.
Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Jeffrey Danowitz. I was a student of Shalom's, things like a lifetime ago, and I have to thank Shalom, I guess, now for bringing back to all of us. I feel like I'm sort of home again. But I have to tell one story, and it is a funny story, I'm sorry, but it's a story that I have never forgotten, and I think an entire classroom of people have never forgotten this story, and we call it the Abarbanel jump. I don't know how he did this, but he had actually proved the theorem on this side of the it was a huge classroom, and got himself to walk over. I asked him a question. ran to the other side of the room because of this. And everyone in the room. Anyway, what I took home from this message is that Saul Abarbanel, Shalom Abarbanel, was an outstanding teacher and did absolutely everything, even if it meant flying across a room, defying laws of nature to get the point across. And at the year when I had to make a decision who would be my master's advisor, actually I was very lucky because nobody else was there, and actually Shalom was still there, and I knocked on his door and said, would you be my advisor? And it worked out, and we had, I don't know how many, 10 years of an outstanding relationship. And this is not an easy thing, and I did not know really actually about what happened until very recently, so this is all very new for me, so I'm still in awe, but he's a person that we all love, and that's the best thing I can say.
Anyone else? Yeah. Bishop?
Since it's getting on the less formal side of the things, so it has been mentioned, various qualities that Shalom possessed across the board. So I'll speak about one probably that has not been mentioned yet. So I was a postdoc here, shared between Eitan and Shalom between 92 and 94 here in Tel Aviv. Then I went to the US, and then 3 years later, having spent 3 years in the US, I came back here as faculty. And when I came, it was it was just sort of a turbulent time to settle down. The first day that I was supposed to to come here for work, I lived in Herzliya. I didn't have a car yet. It was I came a few days ago. So Shalom went there to pick me up with his car. And so what I want to say, in addition to all those top qualities, I saw how skillful of a driver he was, navigating Israeli road traffic 25 years ago. There was no Ayalon yet to Herzliya. You had to go through all those streets. So he did it with superb mastery of the. And many years later, he told me at some point that when I finish up with all those academic and administrative and whatever else tasks, which he actually never did, who said that he died with his boots on, right? So he said, I'll become a taxi driver.